The weathered journal arrived at the Portland Police Department in a standard USPS package addressed to Detective Marcus Calloway, Cold Case Division. Inside, along with the journal, was a handwritten note. "I believe this belongs to the Vanderfield case. Found among my father's possessions after his passing." The sender identified themselves only as a concerned citizen. Detective Calloway, a 17-year veteran of missing persons investigations, recognized the name immediately. 7 years earlier, in June 2018, Elliot Vanderfield, a 28-year-old software engineer from Portland, Oregon, had vanished while on a solo hiking trip in Olympic National Park, Washington. The case had generated significant media attention before eventually going cold. The journal itself was unremarkable, a standard leather-bound notebook with water damage to its edges and soil embedded in its spine. But what caught Calloway's attention was tucked between pages 37 and 38, a meticulously hand-drawn map on yellowed graph paper, with coordinates, elevation markers, and cryptic notations. Forensic analysis would later confirm the handwriting matched Vanderfield's known samples. "It's definitely his work," confirmed Calloway's partner, Detective Anaya Reyes, examining the map under the evidence room's bright lights. But these locations don't match any area in Olympic Park where the search was conducted. Indeed, the map depicted an area that analysts later identified as a remote region in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, nearly 6,000 miles from where Vanderfield had disappeared. The discovery prompted the reopening of a case that had frustrated investigators for years. Calloway and Reyes began by revisiting the original timeline, pulling dusty evidence boxes from storage and reviewing hundreds of hours of interviews. Elliot Vanderfield had been reported missing on June 8, 2018, when he failed to check in with his sister Caroline after his scheduled 3-day hike. Park rangers located his vehicle at the Hoh River trailhead, where his hiking permit indicated he had planned to complete the popular 17.3-mile loop. A receipt in his car showed he had purchased trail mix, energy bars, and 2 bottles of water at the visitor center. His backpack, tent, and other camping equipment were missing, suggesting he had begun his hike as planned. The initial search was extensive, stated former park ranger Thomas Riley in his 2018 report. "We deployed ground teams, K9 units, and aerial reconnaissance." The weather was clear that weekend, which should have made location efforts easier if he had simply become lost or injured on the marked trails. Vanderfield's phone had last pinged a tower near the trailhead on the morning of June 6th, after which it either died or was turned off. His credit cards showed no activity after his purchase at the visitor center. The search continued for 3 weeks before being scaled back. No trace of Elliot Vanderfield was found, no equipment, no clothing, no indicators of his direction of travel off the established paths. It was as if he walked into the wilderness and simply evaporated, Caroline Vanderfield had told reporters at the time, her voice trembling during the press conference. But the newly discovered map suggested something entirely different had occurred. When Calloway contacted Caroline Vanderfield about the journal, her reaction was captured on the recorded call. "Elliot never mentioned Romania to me, not once. He was planning a trip to Japan later that year, but nothing about Eastern Europe." Elliot's former colleagues at TechStream Solutions painted a picture of a reserved but brilliant programmer who specialized in data encryption. His supervisor, Martin Kavinsky, described him as methodical to a fault and not the spontaneous type. Records indicated he had taken exactly 11 vacation days in the 3 years he had been with the company. "The guy color-coded his lunch containers for each day of the week," Kavinsky recalled. "The idea that he would just disappear on some international adventure without telling anyone doesn't track." The most puzzling development came 3 months after the journal's arrival. Romanian border police reported that a man matching Vanderfield's description had been found wandering near the mountain village of Brașov, appearing disoriented and carrying minimal identification. When approached, the man claimed to be John Smith and appeared to have limited recollection of his personal history. Local authorities had detained him briefly before transferring him to a medical facility for evaluation. Medical records from the Brașov Regional Hospital indicated the patient suffered from what appeared to be dissociative amnesia. Brain scans showed no evidence of traumatic injury, but blood work revealed traces of unidentified compounds that medical experts suggested could be consistent with certain medications used to treat psychiatric conditions. The attending physician noted that the patient seemed to experience islands of memory, fragments of recollection amid otherwise comprehensive memory loss, translated Detective Reappears from the Romanian medical file. Interestingly, he repeatedly asked for drawing materials and produced several maps similar to the one found in the journal. When shown photographs from his previous life in Portland, the patient demonstrated no recognition. However, he became visibly agitated when presented with images of wilderness areas from Olympic National Park, though he couldn't articulate why. A DNA comparison confirmed what facial recognition software had already suggested, with 98.7% certainty. John Smith was indeed Elliot Vanderfield. But how had a hiker from the Pacific Northwest ended up in Romania with no memory and a hand-drawn map of the very region where he was found? And where had he been for the intervening 7 years? Callaway and Reappears began constructing a timeline of Vanderfield's known whereabouts prior to his disappearance. His passport had never been flagged at any international border. His bank accounts showed routine activity until the day before his hike, after which they remained untouched. No one matching his description had purchased airline tickets under any name that investigators could trace. One lead emerged from Vanderfield's work history. 6 months before his disappearance, TechStream Solutions had been contracted by Meridian Dynamics, a defense contractor with international operations, including a satellite office in Bucharest, Romania. Kavinsky confirmed that Vanderfield had been part of the team developing encryption protocols for the project, though he was not among the employees selected to travel to Romania for the implementation phase. Elliot was disappointed about not making the travel team, recalled Dana Winters, a former colleague. He'd been studying Romanian on a language app for months. I remember because he would practice phrases during lunch breaks. This revelation directly contradicted Caroline's assertion that her brother had never mentioned Romania. When confronted with this discrepancy, she admitted that there were aspects of her brother's life that remained private even from her. Elliot compartmentalized everything, she explained. Work was work. Family was family. He wouldn't necessarily tell me about his professional interests unless I specifically asked. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered another curious detail. Vanderfield had withdrawn $12,000 in cash from his savings account over the 3 months preceding his disappearance. The transactions were spaced to avoid triggering banking reporting requirements, never more than $3,000 at once. The discovery of Vanderfield's systematic cash withdrawals shifted the investigation's trajectory. This wasn't the behavior of someone planning a simple hiking trip. It suggested preparation for something more elaborate. Do these withdrawals demonstrate premeditation? Callaway noted during a case briefing. He was creating a financial cushion that wouldn't leave an electronic trail. When Romanian authorities granted permission for UBS and investigators to interview Vanderfield, Callaway and Reappears made the journey to Brașov. Their first impression, recorded in Callaway's notes, described a man who physically matched Elliot Vanderfield, but whose mannerisms and speech patterns were markedly different. Subject speaks with slight accent, origin undetermined, maintains consistent eye contact unlike behavior described by family and colleagues, demonstrates no emotional response when shown family photographs. During 3 days of interviews, Vanderfield, still referring to himself as John Smith, maintained he had no recollection of his life in Portland. When presented with the journal and map, however, his reaction was impossible to miss. Security footage from the interview room captured his hands trembling as he traced the lines of the map with his fingertips. "I drew this," he stated with unexpected certainty. "These markings indicate underground water sources. This symbol means entrance concealed by vegetation." When asked how he knew this information, he simply replied, "My hands remember what my mind does not." Forensic analysis of the journal revealed additional layers of information. Under ultraviolet light, invisible ink markings appeared on several pages, showing what appeared to be coordinates and timing schedules. More troubling were trace elements found embedded in the paper, compounds consistent with restricted chemicals used in advanced military applications. Meanwhile, Detective Reyes had been building a network of contacts in Brasov, piecing together Vanderfield's movements before his discovery by border police. A breakthrough came from Mirela Constantinescu, owner of a small pension in the nearby village of Zernești, who recognized Vanderfield's photograph. "This man stayed here for nearly 2 months last winter," she confirmed. "He paid in cash and spent most days hiking in the mountains, even in harsh weather. He always returned with soil samples and would work late into the night at a makeshift laboratory in his room." When authorities searched the pension room Vanderfield had occupied, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside was a waterproof case containing a laptop with encrypted files, 3 passports with different identities, but Vanderfield's photograph, and a collection of memory cards. Technical specialists required 17 days to break through the encryption. What they found was disturbing. Detailed surveillance photographs of a remote facility nestled in the Carpathian Mountains, not marked on any public maps. The facility bore the logo of Meridian Dynamics, the same defense contractor that had employed Vanderfield's company in Portland. The investigation now expanded to include the FBI's International Operations Division and Romanian intelligence. Declassified portions of their report indicated that Meridian Dynamics had been under investigation for potential violations of international weapons development treaties. "Now, we believe Vanderfield was operating as a corporate whistleblower," stated Special Agent Dominic Velez in a sealed deposition. "The evidence suggests he discovered potentially illegal activities during his work on their encryption systems and took it upon himself to gather evidence." This theory was supported by recovered fragments of emails from Vanderfield's encrypted laptop, showing he had attempted to contact international regulatory agencies 3 weeks before his disappearance in Olympic National Park. None of these communications appeared to have been completed or sent. The narrative began taking shape. Vanderfield had likely discovered concerning information through his encryption work, planned an elaborate disappearance to investigate further, and somehow made his way to Romania using false identification. But crucial questions remained unanswered. Why stage a disappearance in a national park? How had he traveled internationally without leaving a trace? And most importantly, what had happened to his memory, Caroline Vanderfield, now serving as her brother's legal guardian due to his cognitive condition, authorized access to his medical records from before the disappearance. These revealed a prescription for a rare sleep disorder, parasomnia with complex behaviors, that had been diagnosed 2 years before he vanished. Patients with this condition can perform elaborate activities while technically asleep, explained Dr. Elaine Markham, a neurologist consulted by the investigation. In extreme cases, individuals have been known to drive vehicles, prepare meals, and even hold conversations without forming conscious memories of these events. This medical history opened another possibility, that Vanderfield's memory issues predated whatever had occurred in Romania. However, the specific pattern of his current amnesia, with its selective preservation of certain skills and knowledge, suggested something more deliberate. The most disturbing theory emerged after toxicology experts completed a comprehensive analysis of Vanderfield's blood samples. They identified trace markers consistent with experimental compounds documented in classified research on memory manipulation, research reportedly abandoned by legitimate governments decades earlier. These compounds target specific regions of the hippocampus involved in autobiographical memory, while preserving procedural knowledge and skills, explained Dr. Hernandez from the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. In theory, such compounds could allow someone to forget who they are while remembering how to speak multiple languages or draw detailed maps from memory. When investigators presented their findings to Meridian Dynamics, the company's representatives denied any knowledge of Vanderfield's activities in Romania. Official records showed no connection between him and their European operations. However, internal emails obtained through warrant revealed that security personnel had flagged unauthorized access to their Romanian facility databases originating from Portland, access that coincided with Vanderfield's late-night work sessions. 7 months into the renewed investigation, a forest ranger in Olympic National Park made a discovery that connected the final dots. During routine maintenance of remote trail cameras installed to monitor wildlife, technicians recovered footage from a backup system that had never been properly downloaded during the original search for Vanderfield. The grainy night vision footage, time-stamped June 7, 2018, one day after Vanderfield began his hike, showed 2 figures in tactical gear escorting a third person through a remote section of the park. The third individual appeared to be semi-conscious, supported between the 2 others. Facial recognition analysis, while inconclusive due to image quality, indicated an 83% probability that the third person was Elliot Vanderfield. We believe Mr. Vanderfield was intercepted during his hike, possibly drugged, and removed from the park via an unauthorized access point, Calloway stated in his case summary. Given the professional nature of this operation and the subsequent evidence of his presence in Romania, we are treating this as a potential case of corporate espionage and international kidnapping. The most compelling evidence came from Vanderfield himself. During his 12th session with FBI cognitive specialists, he experienced what psychologists termed a breakthrough moment. While examining topographical maps of Olympic National Park, he suddenly began describing, in vivid detail, being approached by 2 hikers who claimed to be lost, accepting water from them, and then experiencing rapid disorientation. "Oh, they said they worked for Meridian too," he recounted, his voice gaining clarity and losing its acquired accent. "They said they knew what I'd found in the encryption protocols. They said we needed to talk somewhere private." This partial memory recovery was followed by fragmented recollections of being transported in various vehicles, documents being prepared, and eventually arriving in Romania, where he was apparently given access to the very facility he had been investigating, but under controlled conditions. "They wanted to know who I'd told," he explained. "But there was no one. I hadn't trusted anyone with what I'd found." What Vanderfield had discovered, according to his recovering memories, was evidence that Meridian Dynamics had developed a neurochemical compound capable of selective memory manipulation, the very compound later found in his system. The technology had dual-use potential for both therapeutic applications in trauma treatment and more questionable applications in intelligence operations. "They said they were going to make me forget the project ever existed," Vanderfield recalled. But something went wrong with the procedure. "Instead of targeted memory suppression, I lost almost everything." The final piece of the puzzle came from Romanian intelligence services, who had been monitoring the Meridian facility following the international investigation. They reported that the site had been hastily evacuated and equipment removed 3 days after Vanderfield was discovered by border police. Subsequent inspection revealed evidence of document destruction and chemical disposal. Despite mounting evidence, prosecutorial challenges remained substantial. The cross-jurisdictional nature of the case, involving potential crimes in Washington state, international borders, and Romanian territory, created a legal labyrinth. Corporate attorneys for Meridian Dynamics maintained that any resemblance between their legitimate research facilities and the locations in Vanderfield's maps was coincidental. 3 former employees of Meridian's Romanian operation were identified as persons of interest, but all had relocated to countries without extradition treaties with the United States. Financial records indicated they had received substantial bonuses before the facility's closure. As for Elliot Vanderfield, his recovery continued gradually. Working with cognitive rehabilitation specialists, he regained approximately 60% of his autobiographical memories over the following year, though significant gaps remained, particularly regarding his time in Romania between 2018 and his discovery in 2025. The hand-drawn map that had initiated the investigation was determined to be Vanderfield's attempt to document the location of the facility and surrounding terrain during periods when he was permitted limited outdoor access. Information his procedural memory preserved, even as his personal identity was chemically erased. The human mind has remarkable resilience, noted Dr. Landon from the recovery team. Even when autobiographical memory is compromised, other forms of knowledge can find ways to persist, particularly when the individual makes deliberate efforts to preserve that information, as Mr. Vanderfield did with his maps. The case remains technically open, classified as an inactive investigation pending new evidence. Meridian Dynamics underwent corporate restructuring following the international scrutiny, divesting its Eastern European operations and rebranding its neuroscience division. Caroline Vanderfield, speaking at a conference on corporate whistleblower protections, summarized the lingering uncertainties. "We may never know every detail of what happened to my brother, but we know enough to recognize that when corporations operate beyond regulatory oversight, individuals can disappear, not just physically, but their very identities can be erased." Elliot Vanderfield, now working as a cartographer specializing in wilderness mapping, declined all interview requests through his legal representatives. The only public statement attributed to him appeared in court documents filed in his civil case against Meridian Dynamics, which was eventually settled for an undisclosed amount. Memory isn't just who we were, it's who we are. When someone takes that from you, they don't just change your past, they alter your future. Some borders, once crossed, can never be fully returned from.